holding here on the Chaf Beis Amud Aleph, and we are learning all about the laws of Balkeri and the fact that this was a decree at one point, and it seems to have been abolished. I mentioned that there is we are going to learn that there is an alternative method of a Balkeri not actually going to a mikvah, but having water poured on him. And the term that's going to be used is Tisha Kabin. Tisha Kabin. Kav is a certain measurement, and you need 9 of those. I use the term pitcher, but that's not really correct. It's a certain measurement. 9 of these like cups or something. Kav is a certain measurement, so 9 of them. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to have 9 actual pitchers and pour with 9 different containers of water on top of a person. But what it means is you can have up to 3 pourings as long as they don't stop, as long as it's continuous. So if you can't fit it all in one container, you could fit it into 3, and as long as you pour it continuously. And so that's called the Tisha Kabin. This is an alternative method of a sort of like a mikvah dip. Now it only works for a Balkeri. It would only work for this type of tumah that we're talking about, a seminal emission, and it really is. It shows us that this is, of course, a rabbinic decree, and therefore the rabbis allowed such a type of ritual bathing, because really, according to halacha, of course, there's no such thing as 9 kabin, which equals approximately 12.5 liters of water. And we will see that there was a rabbi that actually measured a container, and he made a container that holds these 9 kabin. He has one container, and this way he made it easy. Anyone that wants to do the 9 kabin type of a dip or rinsing, they can use his container, and they just lift it over their head, pour it all over their body, and that would be considered good enough for a Balkeri for this person. I should mention that the rabbis in the later poskim, the later authoritative rabbis that give verdicts and questions in halacha, so they discuss taking a shower. Would a shower be considered like a Tisha Kabin type of a ritual for a person who's a Balkeri? And the common view is, although it's not necessary, although the halacha is that you don't even need the Tisha Kabin. The halacha is that we don't. Person is not obligated in going to mikvah. Even though but it is considered like a chumrah, an extra act of stringency. So the question is, does it work? Does a shower work? If you want to do that extra act of stringency, would the shower work? So, and then the question would be, does that work if you want to go to a mikvah for, let's say, before Shabbos? A lot of people go to the mikvah before Shabbos or before Yom Tov. Would it work to do the Tisha Kabin? Does it only work? In other words, there's no obligation in going to mikvah before Shabbos. It's an extra act of stringency. So the question is, if this Tisha Kabin works if the 9 kabin, the option, which could be which possibly a shower is included. Many opinions are that a shower is fine. Would that work for Shabbos as well, or those type of rituals need to have an actual mikvah. And even if it does need a mikvah, there might be room for leniency, which we will also see that a men's mikvah or a mikvah for the 40 saw that's necessary. Let's say normally, according to the letter of, according to the initial decree, a person would go to the mikvah, but that mikvah doesn't have to be the same mikvah, the same type of mikvah with all the stringencies. For example, there might be room for leniency. Yeah, I'm going to finish in that. There might be room for leniency if the mikvah was just regular water. So, for example, maybe a swimming pool might work. In other words, it might not be rainwater. It's called mayim she'uvin, water that was drawn. That's the term used for water that's normally not allowed for a mikvah. But here, possibly it would be okay. And then the question would be, would that be okay for Shabbos and Yontiv? Again, we're dealing with we're not dealing with laws, we're dealing with extra stringencies, fulfilling these extra, getting these extra beyond the letter of the law type of rituals. So for Shabbos, you want to bring on a certain level of purity and holiness. So that would be, that would be the reason why a man would go to a mikvah before Shabbos. And the same thing would be before Yontiv and so on. Okay, Ben.
Yeah, I wanted to say shower, but you came up with it. But I want to say after a pool swim, you still have to take a shower to wash off the chemicals from the pool.
Okay, and therefore?
Therefore, you don't have to jump into the pool. You can just take a shower.
You're saying if you go to the pool, you're going to take a shower anyway.
Right.
Well, that could be, but it could be that a pool might be better than the shower for Shabbos. So the shower maybe doesn't do it. Doesn't give you that extra purity and holiness, and cause the soul or the extra soul to enter your body. It could be that it enters when you go to the mikveh, maybe. So if so, could be that the shower doesn't work, but maybe a pool would work. Now, even a pool, there's also an issue with if the filter is on, because if it's running, if the water is running, that's a problem. A mikveh is supposed to be stagnant. It can't be moving. The water can't be moving, and that's why if there's a filter on, it could be considered a problem. And one of the big problems, it's especially important for a woman's mikvah, that they have to be extra careful, because if that filter was on, they would need to, generally they would have to have the woman come back and go to mikvah again. Yes, Robert.
So even if it was, let's say the filter was running prior to Shabbos, it still would not be permissible to then use the mikveh as the water's flowing, because it was already generated prior to Shabbos.
No. Once you turn it off, then it's not a problem, even though it was on. Like many mikvahs do have a filter. Okay. So the main thing is don't use it when the filter is on. Now, I'm not talking about a man's mikvah, because for men, again, there might be room for leniency, and there might be different types of, but for a woman, for sure, it has to be, for sure they would want to be extra, they would definitely not want that filter on. So many mikvahs for women, they don't allow a filter. Okay. In places where they do allow a filter, what they do is they somehow attach it to the lighting. So if the light is on, the filter is off. If the lights of the mikvah are ever on, the filter is off, to make sure that they never have an issue.
Okay, right.
Because again, a mikvah can't be moving around. Now, if it was a well, it would be different. If a person went to mikvah in a well, that water is allowed to be zoichalin, could be moving, but a mikvah can't be. Right. So I'm connecting it to a swimming pool, and there might be room for a swimming pool for a man to go to mikvah, which we'll soon see. In such a case, it could be that the swimming pool should be off, possibly in order for it to be considered a proper mikvah.
Right, and the laws of the mikvah are also in the Shulchan Aruch, or just? Oh,
for sure.
Okay, so we haven't. I don't think I have covered that yet since I've been. All right, good. Just want to make sure.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of the hardest sections of the Mishnahs, the laws of mikvah. It's very hard. It takes people study. great scholars spend long time studying the laws of mikvahs, the laws of mikvah. And there's a big section of the Shulchan Aruch also on mikvah. Yes, Susan.
I wanted to ask, is if you're going to use, if a woman is not menstruating any longer and she still wants to purify herself, isn't there a special prayer if you're, or something,
Right.
not just
So,
10? I mean,
a woman waits 7 clean days after she stops menstruating. She has to check herself each day.
no, but a woman who is no longer menstruating.
Oh, no
That's
longer. Oh, I see.
Right.
Oh, if she has menopause. So basically, as long as she went to mikvah one time after she finished menstruating, she still is tameh until she goes to mikvah once. She has to go to mikvah once because the last time she menstruated, she never went to mikvah.
Okay.
But so once she goes to mikvah once, she's pure. Now, you're wondering if there's any reason for a woman to go afterwards again to mikvah afterwards. I'm not sure. I'm told that there are some women that go to mikvah before Yom Kippur. So I'm not sure if it's that's how common that is. But according to the letter of the law, they don't need to go to the mikvah until Mashiach comes, and they're gonna want to touch holy items, and if they're gonna touch truma and the other holy things. But until then, there is no need for a woman to go to mikvah as long as she went once after she finished menstruating.
Right.
Or if she gets remarried. If she's getting remarried. I believe there would be a reason to go to mikvah because of dam chimud. I'm not sure. I'd have to make sure that a woman who's post menstruation I believe she would still go to mikvah if she gets remarried. But I have to look it up to make sure. Yes, Ezra.
Yeah.
I have a question. Because you're in this neighborhood, so you know exactly what I'm going to be talking about. What's the difference between a Chabad mikveh and the normal mikvahs that people use here? What was the difference? What was missing in the mikveh that would not allow the Chabad women to use it?
So the truth is that it's not that it's not allowed for Chabad women to use it. There's no problem. A mikveh that's kosher is kosher. It's fine. The issue, the point of a Chabad mikveh is that there is an issue with a mikveh. The way a mikveh works is that there's 2 bodies of water. There's one body of water that you don't see, and it's called the bar. And then there's another body of water that you dunk in. And there's a little hole that attaches these 2 bodies of water.
Yeah.
And so what happens is every so often, so the rainwater is what's in this other body of water that's in another room, that's on the side, there's another body of water that they don't show you. And that's the rainwater. And then they attach the regular water with the rainwater, and it becomes considered part of the mikvah. And the thing is, every so often they switch the tap water, which is the pool part where you dunk in. They switch that with new water. They fill it with new water. In the meantime, the rainwater stays the same, right? The problem is that there's always a mixture. They're always touching the rainwater and the other. In other words, there's 2 pools. One pool is the rainwater. The other pool is regular water, and it's attached because there's a hole in between the 2, and it becomes all considered part of a mikvah. The problem is that sometimes the rainwater is constantly mixing with the other water. So what happens if after 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, the water that was the rainwater is no longer rainwater anymore, because it's all been mixed with the tap water pool, and therefore you no longer have the original rainwater there, because there's a hole that attaches these two these two pools. And so therefore it's called Natal Saw, Nasan Saw, that we're afraid that you might have taken and put back other water, and ultimately it's not enough rainwater to make it a kosher mikveh anymore. So in order to fix that problem, mikvahs every few years they get new rainwater. But it's an issue. We never really know how much rainwater is missing. The Rebbe Rashab came up with a trick. He said that if one body of water is hot and the other body of water is cold, they don't mix. And if it's below, in other words, if you put the rainwater below the tap water, so you have two bodies of water, you have a lower body of water, and that's cold. And then you have on top of it hot water or warm water, and that's in a pool that's on top. So again, there's a hole that attaches the two pools of water. One is below, so there's a little hole that attaches it. So if the top water is warm and the bottom water is cold, it won't mix. So when you do it that way, it comes out that you don't have so much of an issue of the rainwater ultimately being emptied out when you take out the pool water that the rainwater might have been missing, because that rainwater is cold. So that was that is a way that one of the Lubavitch Rebbeim figured out of how to get around this problem that for generations they've always was always an issue, and so it became like a tradition now that like Lubavitch women like to use such a mikvah because it's like it's more definite that the rainwater is still there. Now it doesn't mean that you can't use another mikvah. It's just an extra stringency, and it could be in the community. I think one of the reasons why the women didn't really like the mikvah in North Miami Beach, it had to do with one of the rabbis that was in charge of that mikvah, or one of the main rabbis that was in charge, I think was not so friendly to Lubavitch. So I think maybe that's why they made more of a deal out of it. But I don't know that you know what I mean, that there would be a reason not to use it. Just because, I mean, in Russia, I don't think all the Lubavitch mikvahs were all made with the Rebbe Rashab's mikvah.
Right.
I
Now,
believe.
Is that the same mikvah that is on Miami Gardens Drive, or that's a different one?
Yeah, the one on Miami Gardens Drive. He's mentioning that there were a lot of Lubavitch women that didn't.
No, I understand that. I just wanted to make sure that was the one was in discussion. Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
But in any event, all mikvahs are, if it's proper, if it's, it was checked, they made sure the rainwater is done properly, was built properly. There's no reason why we should question any other mikvah, even if it's not made with the extra pool of water below it, and the top pool of water is warm. There's no reason to it doesn't, even if it's not made that way, there's no reason to suspect that it's an issue. We're sure all these mikvahs are kosher, but it's an extra stringency. The regular mikvah that's made is normally not made with a body of water below it. It's normally made on the side of it. So the Lubavitch mikvah is two bodies of water, one on top of the other, and the other mikvahs are made side by side. In some places, they do both because they want to make everyone happy, and they do one side by side, they do one below it. And there were rabbis that questioned the Lubavitch mikvah as well, because there's rules about katafros, that if there's a hole from the mikvah below it, it could be an issue. There were those that questioned the Lubavitch mikvah. So some places they do both. They do one on the side and they do one below it, and then you cover all grounds and everyone's happy. And that's a nice way to make it for a community if you want to do it right. But in any event, of course, in Lubavitch, they're not concerned about the issue. They're very satisfied with the mikvah below it, and it takes away that other issue because of the heat. So that gives you a little mikvah information, but it's really not the topic. But I think we covered it anyway. It's not really the topic of our discussion here. Here we're really dealing with the unique case of a Baal Keri, a person who is not supposed to daven or learn, order to until they go to the mikveh. So we learned yesterday that there's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda ben Yehuda that Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira that says words of Torah are not mikabel tuma, and you really don't need to. Nowadays, or
Aye.
you don't need to go
I'm
to.
well.
I'm sorry. You don't need to go to mikvah or if a person is a Baal Keri. And that was Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira's opinion. We explained how does that fit with Ezra, because Ezra seemed to make a decree. And we gave a few explanations yesterday how Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira said that decree didn't take effect, or he was able to abolish it. Okay, Mel, did you have a question, Mel?
I only wanted to comment that I know that if you turn off the pumps in a pool, a man can use it as a mikveh. And for some reason, they said women are not allowed to.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, that was the only thing I wanted to mention.
Yeah. Now the reason why women can't use it is it's not rainwater.
Right.
It's water that's been drawn, mayim she'uvin. It's drawn from a vessel, and therefore it would not be kosher for a woman, at least rabbinically, for sure.
Right. Because nowadays, of course, with all the rain we have, it's mixing with that water in the pool. So I don't know. In other words, I know a new mikveh supposedly has to have 100% rainwater, right?
No,
I didn't know that.
No, the one bar of it has to have the bar has to be rainwater without mixing. Right, it has to be rainwater, and then on top of that you mix in. But the initial bar is rainwater.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Rabbi,
Yes.
I wanted to say I listened to your recording from yesterday. It ends after 39 minutes and 12 seconds. I don't know what you said after the 29 minutes. And
That you gotta be at the class.
We are at this point now.
That's special stuff. We don't. But the reason why it is that way is because there were two classes yesterday. There was Tanya and Gemara. So our class was only that long.
Right.
But you got to listen to the Tanya. So that makes up the
I did
hour.
listen to the Tanya and I listened to you, and I think that I got everything, but just in case you said something extra afterwards, I don't know.
No. I unless there were some questions maybe that I didn't feel were necessary to include in the video. But that's why it was 39 minutes, not an hour. Okay. So the Gemara that we learned yesterday, we had, number one, we said that there is a concept of Hilchas Derech Eretz, and according to Rabbi Yehuda, he felt that you're allowed to daven certain prayers because they're like Hilchas Derech Eretz, they're like learning laws of Derech Eretz, proper etiquette, and then we brought up a number of opinions about what would be allowed for a Baal Keri to learn. And we said the Mishnah, well, the first opinion was if something is Shagur Befiv. Shainahu Beragilius. Rabbi Yossi said Shainahu Beragilius. Yes? What?
It means he knows it by heart.
So things that he's very familiar with, right? And that was Rabbi Yossi's opinion. And then we said, but he can't do Mishnah. Then we had opinion Mishnah, but not Gemara. And then we said that he can even do Gemara as long as he doesn't mention the psukim, the verse with Hashem's name. And then we had an opinion, Birchana Sandler, that said he shouldn't do any learning. Lo yikanes lemedrash kol ikar, and but he would be allowed to enter the base medrash and be quiet. And the other opinion is shouldn't even enter the base medrash, shouldn't even enter the study house. Now, then Rabbi Yehuda's opinion was he could learn Hilchos Derech Eretz, and then he had a story about how he went to mikveh even to learn Derech Eretz, but really that was beyond the letter of the law. His opinion was that you're really allowed to, but he liked to be machmir. Okay, then we had the Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira that said that Divrei Torah is not mekabel tumah, and he brought a story how someone was megamgem, which I said there were two explanations what megamgem meant, but he was basically nervous to learn the regular way, and either he was mumbling or he was rushing through it. And Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira said, "What are you worried about? Torah is not mekabel tumah. There's nothing to worry about. You can learn like a mensch." And just like fire is not mekabel tumah, also Torah is not mekabel tumah. Torah doesn't become tamei. So even if you study Torah and you are tamei with the Balkari, it's not going to make the Torah tamei, and there's no problem for you to study Torah regularly. You don't have to be megamgim. You don't have to rush through it, or you don't have to mumble it. Okay.
Rabbi,
Now,
Rabbi,
yes.
does that include davening also?
Does that include davening? So the Gemara, the way we're understanding it, it includes everything. That learning Torah and davening seem to fall within the same category. And so when we say you can't learn, it means you can't daven as well. And that's the understanding we had in the Mishnah, because the Mishnah spoke about Keri, and the laws that we dealt with were reciting the Shema, reciting the blessings of the Shema, and so it seemed that if you can't daven, you can't learn as well. There is a discussion. It seems that there's a possibility of learning in the Rambam that there were two separate decrees. One was with regard to Torah, the other was with regard to prayer. But that's not the simple way of learning the Gemara. The simple way of learning the Gemara is that it's one decree basically of Torah and Tefillah, and or Torah Tefillah is included in Torah with regard to this. So the Gemara now that we're up to, we're four lines. No, not 4 lines. We are up to Amar Mar, 5 lines from the wide lines, the widest line. If you count down from it's about halfway down the page, but it's about 5th wide line. Page 22A, 5th wide line. Amar Mar, Master said. Amar Mar means we said earlier. Someone mentioned earlier. Amar Mar, Master said, Matzia es ha-Mishnah, ve'ena matzia es ha-Gemara. He can present the Mishnah, and he can learn the Mishnah with its reasons, but he can't learn the Gemara. That was one opinion that we mentioned earlier, and that was Reb Yonasan ben Yosef. Reb Yonasan ben Yosef, he mentioned this opinion.
Rabbi, does Matzia mean expound?
So that's what it seems like. The Rashi gives the B'taime Yatzia B'taime Pirushem with the reasons. So how to specifically translate Yatzia, the etymology that I would need a exact. Maybe the Jastro would have it. I believe the word actually means to spread out, but maybe I'm wrong.
Offering.
In the art scroll, it's translated as elaborate.
Elaborate.
Offering.
So we could just use that. The art scroll doesn't always translate it with perfect literal translation. So you can't really prove it, but yeah, but I mean, it definitely means to expound. The question is the literal translation of the word. I do have a Jastro here. To spread. So to spread out, to unfold, to prepare, lay out. So it's to spread out the Mishnah with expounding it. But the literal translation, I believe, means to spread out, as I earlier, that's what it seems like. I don't see any other translation there. So the opinion that we're explaining is Rabbi Yonasan ben Yosef, that it's that a person would be allowed to expound on the Mishnah, but not on the Gemara. And the Gemara says, Messiah Ale, this is a proof, Rabbi Eloi, to Rabbi Eloi. The Amar Rabbi Eloi, Amar Rav Acha bar Yaakov, in the name of Rav Acha bar Yaakov, Rabbi Eloi said, Mishum Rabbeinu, in the name of our teacher, that what is the halacha? The halacha is Matzia es ha-Mishnah, ve'ena matzia es ha-Gemara. You expound on the Mishnah, but not the Gemara. That's the halacha, and that's what he said. The halacha. The Gemara says kitanoi. Let's say this is an argument of the Tanoim, because we have a statement of the Tanoim, the earlier rabbis who wrote the Mishnahs, and they seem to have a debate. Matzia as ha-Mishnah, ve'ena matzia as ha-Gemara, divrei Reb Meir. Reb Meir says you can expound on the Mishnah, but not the Gemara. Rabbi Yehuda ben Gamliel, mishum Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel, zeh v'zeh asur. So there's another opinion, a Tana, that says that both are prohibited. So that's Rabbi Yehuda ben Gamliel in the name of Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel, in the name of his brother. He said they're both prohibited, Mishnah and Gemara. V'amri la zeh v'zeh mutter, and some say that what he said was they're both permissible, but he definitely said they're both in the same category. They're either both prohibited or both permissible. And we're not exactly sure what the correct version is. There are two views of what the correct version was. But basically, Reb Meir said there's a difference between Mishnah and Gemara. And this opinion of Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel, who his brother Rabbi Yehuda said, that either said they're both permissible or both prohibited. And Man de Amar Zevazeh Asur, the opinion that says both are prohibited is Rabbi Yochanan HaSandler. That would fit with Rabbi Yochanan HaSandler that says he can't learn anything. And Man de Amar Zevazeh Mutter, the opinion that says they're both permissible, that could be like Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, ben Beseira. What did Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira say? Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira said that Divrei Torah is not mekabel tuma. Words of Torah are not a problem. Person is allowed to study Torah. So it seems that we have many views here, and the earlier Gemara that mentioned these few views, that earlier Gemara, it seems like there's different opinions that also seem that they sort of follow other other opinions that we have brought from the Tanoim. Just 1 second. So what it seems like here is that the Gemara is combining the views. That's really what it's doing. It's saying like these Tanoim are like those Tanoim. Like the earlier statements was a brisa, so it's also Tanoim, but it's saying that these views seem to be fit with the other views. Like we're consolidating and combining the different opinions as to see what the different views are, and we consolidated them a little because we have Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira who says that you can learn any Torah, and that seems to fit with this other opinion of Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel that they're both permissible, and then we had the opinion that they're both prohibited. That fits with that goes together with Rabbi Yochanan HaSandler, and then this view of Rabbi Loi seems to makes a difference between Gemara, Mishnah, and Gemara that fits with the other view of Rabbi Yonasan ben Yosef. So we've consolidated the views. That's so far. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak nohug alma kahani tlas sabi. The world follows these three elders. That there's halachas that we seem to follow these three rabbis in these different areas of halacha. And what this is going to say is that even though Rabbi Loi said who the halacha is like, we have Rabbi Yochanan HaSandler that tells us, we have Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak telling us, sorry, the halacha really follows a different view, a more lenient view. So let's see what he says. What are the three things? So the halacha is Kerebi Eloi Bereshis Hagez. We follow Rabbi Eloi with regard to Reshis Hagez, the first of the shearings of wool, that it only applies, we'll soon see that it only applies in Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Yoshia beKelayim, we follow Rabbi Yoshia with the laws of Kelayim. And what does that mean? That the laws of Kelayim, in order to transgress the laws of Kelayim biblically, you would need to have two types of seeds that are mixed together, and then you would mix them with the vineyard. That would be the prohibition of Kelayim of a vineyard, meaning there's a prohibition. Kelayim means to have a mixture of plants that you plant together different species, and that is called kilayim. That's prohibited. But this is the view that we're mentioning, and all three of these views are lenient views that we follow. The world is lenient in these three areas. One of them is the Reshis Hagez, that are given the first shearings of the wool to the Kohen, which it only applies in Israel, meaning that there were other views that it would apply also outside of Israel, but we don't follow that. We follow the opinion that it's only in Israel. The other point is that when it comes to kilayim, a mixture of seeds, that the normal that the law is you can't mix a wheat with a grape, a vineyard with wheat or other types of species. You're not allowed to mix them. So opinion that we're mentioning here, that we say that the world follows, is that it only applies if you mix something that was already mixed with a vineyard, meaning wheat and barley. Let's say you mix those two together, and then you take that mixture and you bring that to the vineyard. That's where you would be biblically transgressing the law of Kilayim. And then comes the main point, and that is that Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira b'divrei Torah, that we follow Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira's law when it comes to divrei Torah, to studying Torah for a person who is a Baal Keri. And now the Gemara explains all three. Rabbi Eloi Bereshis Hagez, we follow Rabbi Eloi when it comes to the first shearings, the Tanya, because we learned in a Braisos. Rabbi Eloi Omer Bereshis Hagez Ein Noig Ela Ba'aretz. Bereshis Hagez only applies in Eretz Yisrael. And Rabbi Yoshia b'Kilayim, we follow Rabbi Yoshia when it comes to Kilayim, mixture of species. The Kidduchsiv, as it says, Karmacha loisizra karmacha Kilayim. You shouldn't plant in your vineyard something that's already Kilayim, something that's already a mixture. So the prohibition of the vineyard Kilayim is only when you mix with it something that's already Kilayim before it's already a mixture, which would mean like wheat and barley together, and then you put them together, that would be prohibited. Rabbi Yoshia Omer Lo'olam ein chayav, and Rabbi Yoshia says, what does this verse mean? Lo'olam ein chayav, you're not obligated in the prohibition of Kilayim ad sheyizra chitus ayra v'chartzon, unless you plant chitus ayra, wheat and barley, and chartzon, and a seed of a grape, the mapilas yad, in planting with, planting it together. That would be the prohibition of the kilayim, that you can. It's not from just wheat and grape. You would need wheat and barley and grape. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira b'divrei Torah, when we follow the law of Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira with regard to studying Torah, the Tanya Rabbi Yehuda, we learned in a brayso, so Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira Omer, Yehuda ben Beseira says, "Ein divrei Torah makabel tumah." Words of Torah is not makabel tumah. You're allowed to study Torah even if you are a Baal Teri. He also Zeiri Amar Betlua L'Tfilusa. When Zeiri came, he says, "That's right. They were mavatel. They were mavatel to be toivel, to go to mikvah. They abolished the law of a Baal Keri going to mikvah. Ba'amri law Betlua L'Netilusa." And some say that he said a little differently, a different law, that they were mavatel, washing one's hands for Shema, or for tefillah, for prayer, excuse me. And the Gemara says, Man Amar Bedlua L'Tfilusa, according to the opinion that they were mavatel, the tevilah, the going to mikvah for a Baal Keri, because that follows Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, because that's following the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, which says that Torah is doesn't become impure. You're allowed to study Torah even if you are a Baal Keri. And according to the other opinion, Mandamar Bedluan Linetilusa, according to the other opinion, that the wording of Zeiri was that they were mavatel, they abolished the law of washing one's hands. He had Rav Chizda, like the law of Rav Chizda, Layet Amanda Mahader Amaya Be'idan Slaisa. He cursed the one that ran after water at the time when they were davening. And what that meant was that he, even though the person is supposed to wash their hands before they go to daven, but what happens if you're late? If you're running late, in those days they didn't have running water. So imagine you'd have to go home to go get water and wash your hands, go all the way home or all the way back somewhere to the well. You have to go to some well to get water. You're going to miss the whole davening. or miss summer davening. So he said that if they're starting to daven, you don't go and get water. They will mavatal the obligation of getting water for your davening if you are running. If they are starting to daven, you're going to miss it. So you instead, what should you do? You should wipe your hands with anything that will cleanse, that will clean them, either with a stone or anything that would make it clean. Now, there is an opinion that says that this only applies to Shema, with regard to Shema, you don't have to go after water. But for davening, because the Shema, you're limited with time. And so with regard to Shema, we're afraid you're going to miss the Zman Kriya Shema. Therefore, you shouldn't go after water. And it doesn't apply to tefillah. However, the common opinion of the Rishonim is that even for that it's referring to davening. But I mentioned that it has to do with davening with a minyan, but I think I'm wrong. I think it's just simply not to miss the time of davening. I have to look that up. Is it specifically Rav Chizda didn't want someone to miss? This was on page 15. 1 second. We learned this statement of Rav Chizda. So the Gemara said, there is such an opinion for a minyan. All right, so it's an earlier Taisus. I have to look it up. Maybe we'll touch upon it next time. There's it seems like there's an argument between the Rishonim if it's applicable for Shema or for davening, and to what extent. The way to read it, according to them, is there obviously is another girsa, another version, because our Gemara says the term be'idan slice at the time of davening, and according to the other opinion, it would really would be at the time of Shema. That we're afraid you're going to miss the time of Shema. So that is the point here, that Zeiri said that they were mavatil the obligation of mikvah or of washing one's hands. If it meant mikvah, it's referring to mikvah for a balkari. If it's washing one's hands, it's referring to a person who's going to miss the time of either Shema or davening, and so on. And so that is the point of this Gemara the main point is that it seems like we follow Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, that you don't have to go to mikvah. According to the letter of the law, you have to go to mikvah. And right after this, we will soon see that there is this other option of the Tisha Kabin. Yes, David.
Yeah, I'm getting a little confused because I thought that they were all talking about the same thing in the beginning, which was what a Balkari can say and not say. So Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira seems to be on that page. He says it's regarding matters of Torah. Now, when I saw the first two opinions,
wait. Before you continue, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira says that what? Can he say Torah or he can't?
But, well, it seems like it's with regards to matters of Torah. Well, whatever it is, if you can or you can't, he's talking about a Balkari. It seems like the first two opinions are not talking about Balkari. If they're talking about a Balkari is not allowed to learn those halachas, or they are allowed to learn those halachas,
no.
Or are they talking about the halacha itself of the shearing and the klayim?
No, the three separate things that Zeiri, that Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, right? Was it Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak? Yeah. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak said that there are three things that the world seems to be lenient, and they're totally unrelated. But these are three areas of halacha that people are lenient, and that's what the halacha seems to follow. And one of them has to do with learning Torah for a Balkari. Another one has nothing to do with a Balkari. It has something to do with shearing wool in your sheep in Eretz Yisrael or outside of Eretz Yisrael. Do you need to shear your sheep and give parts to the Kohen outside of Eretz Yisrael? And the answer is no, according to this. And the other, and then the third law that he spoke about kilayim, mixtures. So these are all three unrelated subjects that the halacha follows the lenient view.
See, I thought that they were talking all about Balkari, and
No.
the first two views were which halachas you
No.
are allowed and not allowed if you're a Balkari regarding.
No, absolutely not.
Regarding Kohen. Okay.
I don't know any way of reading the Gemara that way. I don't believe there's any such explanation of the Gemara. Okay, so we're now ready for the next piece. Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis learned, Balkari shenasnu alav tisha kabin, a Balkari that they poured on him, 9 kabin. It's a measurement of water, which I said it equals approximately 12.5 liters. If they poured on him 12.5 liters of water, tahar, he is pure. He is able to now go and learn Torah. Nachum Ish Gamzu, the famous Nachum Ish Gamzu. Nachum Ish Gamzu was a man that said Gamzu L'Toiva. He would always say, this is also for the good. Even when bad things would happen to him, he would always say, wow, this is good. It's going to be fine. Everything's good. The famous story about him with the jewelry, with the gems, precious gems, and he gave it to the non-Jews switched it, and so he brought it to the king, and it was a container full of earth, and Nachum Ish Gamzu said, "Oh, I'm sure it's fine." Gamzu l'teiva. They threw him into prison, and they said, "You give a king earth. This is what you bring him. It's an embarrassment." And ultimately, it turned out that the angel, Yoanavi, came and said that the earth is really special earth that turns into arrows. And they were in the middle of a war. They used it. They fought. They won. So they gave him great reward for what he did. Anyway, in the meantime, he was constantly trusting that whatever happened was for the good. And sure enough, they gave him a big reward when he left. And the people who switched it on him, they ended up getting the death penalty. So Nachum Ish Gamzu, he did some. So this is the Brisa says, this Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis learned that a Balkari can pour 9 kabin of water on him. Nachum Ish Gamzu lachasha Rabbi Akiva. Nachum Ish Gamzu, he whispered this halacha to Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva lachasha Ben Azai. Rabbi Akiva whispered it to Ben Azai. Ben Azai yotzav ashana l'talmidav b'shuk. And Ben Azai went and taught it to his students. So what does this mean? That they didn't seem to want to tell this halacha in public. It's sort of like you keep it private. This is a halacha that we don't make known in public. It's a halacha that in private people know. I'm sharing it with you. You could feel privileged, but this is a halacha that they don't seem to want to publicize, and they whisper it to their students. And then, but Ben Azai went and he taught it to his students in the marketplace, which means that he went and revealed it. In Pligi Batrei Amarai, B'Ma'arava, and there's 2 rabbis in Eretz Yisrael that argue, Rabbi Yosi bar Rav and Rabbi Yosi bar Zvida, Chadamar Tana Tani Shna, V'Chadamar Tani Lachsha. Some say he taught it in public, like to students, and some say he also whispered it to his students. So basically, this is a halacha that it seems like there's reason to not reveal it. Why? So Man de Tani Shana, according to the opinion that he went and revealed it, Ben Azai said, I'm going to teach it to all my students. Everyone else whispered it. He went and he taught it. According to that opinion, why did he do that? Why did he tell everyone, you don't need to go to mikvah? You can just pour Tisha Kabin, which I mentioned that according to many opinions, you can even use a shower for this, to keep it on for a few minutes, but it has to be a certain amount of water. as we said, 9 kabin, but that would be so why did he teach it? Why did he teach this in public? And the answer is Mishum Bittul Torah, because he wanted his students to know that you don't need to go after a mikvah, and it will waste time from your studying Torah. And because if you have to go to the mikvah, you might, till you find the kosher mikvah, sometimes it could be far away. And here, all you need to do is get a bucket of water, a big bucket of water, you pour it over you, you are exempt, you fulfilled your obligation, you're a balkeri that you fulfilled your obligation, you went to mikvah because you poured this water on you, and you are allowed to study Torah and daven. So,
Rabbi.
Number one, he was worried about bittul Torah. Number two, mishum bittul pirya v'rivya. He also had another problem. And he said, I want people to know this halacha because he wanted people to know this halacha because if people don't know this halacha, what happens? They think that you need to go to mikvah every time they're with their wife. What happens? They're going to end up saying, you know what? Let's only be together once every 2 weeks, once a month, because I have to go to mikvah. I don't have time. In those days, they didn't have a mikvah down the road. They had to run to the other side of town, and even then, sometimes it wasn't wasn't a good time. People are around; they can't just jump in. So whatever it was complicated. So they would end up being mavatil pirya v'rivya. They would have less children because of it, and therefore, Ben Azai said, "Let everyone know that Tisha kabin. All you got to do is pour 9 kabin, which is 12.5 liters of water over you, and you are able to go and learn Torah." When people find out about that, they're going to say, okay, I can be with my wife whenever is appropriate, and I don't have to it's not going to take from me, it's not going to cost me a whole chunk of time that I'm going to end up pushing off being with my wife, and therefore they won't limit the amount of children that they could have had. And so that is the reasons why he revealed it, why he didn't whisper it. But what was the reason why he whispered? According to the opinion that says that Ben Azai also whispered it, why did all these rabbis whisper it? What was the reason? The reason was that the scholars shouldn't be by their wives like tarnagoyim, like chickens. And so therefore, what that means is that they sort of wanted people to feel the obligation of going to mikvah, and it would somewhat limit them in their, to some extent, how often they're with their wives. They shouldn't be like the tarnagoyim they have nothing to do all day. The chickens, and they're together with they mate all the time. Scholars shouldn't be like that. So therefore, he wanted them to feel that they have to go to mikvah and not just feel, oh, we have no problem, we just pour some water over us. So this way they at least know the halacha, which 9 kabin is kosher. You can pour these 9 kabin over you. You take a shower, but you should know I'm whispering that to you. The real halacha, what's known is you're supposed to really go to mikvah. This is okay, but at least don't take advantage. Don't indulge because of this. So that's really what that's the Gemara. That's how the Gemara concludes. What's interesting is this comes out so this is sort of the reason for this whole takana, what comes out. In other words, our Gemara doesn't say it clearly, but it's hinted that this is sort of one of the reasons, at least in Yerushalmi it mentions this as one of the reasons why a person, why Ezra made this decree in the first place. He made the decree that people should go to mikvah and not study Torah in order that they shouldn't be eitzel neshasam katar negolim. They shouldn't be with their wives with no limit. And I mentioned that there is another reason that seems, and that was what we learned earlier, that when a person learns Torah, they're supposed to have a certain frame of mind, which is like when we receive the Torah with reses and zeya, ema, yira, with fear, awe, and dread, and that frame of mind. They should, after they're have relations, they really need to go to mikvah to get back that frame of mind. Yes, Moshe. Moshe, you had a question. You're muted. So if you want to ask, unmute. Moshe.
Hello.
Yes.
Nine kava could be put on the according to Rabbi Zera, 9 kava could be put on on a person to make them tahara. What about if in the case that they don't have that and it's raining? Let's say there's a downpour of rain. Can that also be used as a way of purifying the a person before they pray?
Stand outside and naked and let the rainwater fall on you.
Well, I mean, if they're
okay. Well, no, I don't think so. Actually, no, because there's the rainwater stops. The shower is constant. Yeah, you can only use 3 buckets. The maximum 3 buckets. And so the rainwater would be, every drop would be like a different bucket. No, that and it's also not coming from you. It's not being poured. No, I don't think it would work. No, I don't think. So
this would be by a riparian or a littoral area where they get access to ocean water, or just through a well, or I mean, if it's or the mikveh itself, they're taking the water from the mikveh.
I'm sorry, I'm confused. I don't know
where is the water coming from? The 9 kava of water coming from to pour on the person to make them tahara.
Any water, as long as it's in a bucket, and you or it's in a vessel, and you turn it on, you pour it on you. Someone pours it on you, and it's only three maximum 3 buckets. I guess
flowing water from a littoral area, from ocean water, if it's an ocean stream, running water.
Running water, take it in a bucket and pour it on you. Take it in a bucket. Or use the rainwater. Put your bucket outside. Get the rainwater. Let the rain pour the water on you. I think Susan had a question. Susan, are you still here? I don't see you. Susan, I think she. Yeah, I guess. Okay. Ezra.
I am here. It's just
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to make mention of something that in the Steinsaltz, something very interesting. Matters of Torah do not become ritually impure only if the place that you're in is filthy, then that's a problem.
That's the next Gemara later on. That's a Gemara later on.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
Yes, Ezra.
Is the 9? You're saying 9 coven, 9 coven, and no more? Isn't it the minimum of 9 coven?
Yeah, I didn't say no more than 9 coven. No,
you said 3 buckets and that's it.
No, you can't do more buckets. It has to be, it's limited to how many buckets you could use that hold that. In other words, you can't say, okay, I need 12.5 liters. I have these soda bottles that are 1 liter each. Let me fill them all up with water, and I'll use 13 of them, and I'll pour I'll pour one, and then start pouring the next one, and then the next one, and the next one, and I'll use 13-liter bottles of water, and they'll pour on me, and that'll be a good mikvah. At least for a man, for Balkari. And the answer is no, that's not good. You need 3 bottles. So get 3-gallon bottles or whatever.
That's not big enough, because 12.5 liters is 3.3 gallons. So you'd have to you have to
have a 2-gallon bottle. So get a few 2-gallon bottles, and you'll be all set. You get what I'm saying, Ezra? That it can't be different, but more than as far as I know, it can't be more than 3 buckets.
So if you stand under a shower where what's coming out is a flow, it's not drops.
Right, exactly. It has to be a flow, not drops. Yeah.
So you can do the shower, and as long as it's at least 9 coven, you're okay.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That's again. This is the what the Gemara, that it's not a halacha that you need this Tisha Kabin, because we were mevatel the whole decree, but this is as a chumrah. Obviously, a mikvah is more purity and so on, but this would be, according to the original law of Balkari, this would be okay. I'm supposed to whisper it to you rather than tell it to you, but That's the. It seems that the rabbis, at least most of them, wanted to whisper that. But yeah, that was the original law that would be okay. And in the poskim they bring down that if a person doesn't have a mikvah, they should, they could use a shower. Again, these is beyond the letter of the law, but it seems like there is definitely a tradition, a custom that people try to go to mikvah, or there's definitely reason to, especially for prayer, and so it definitely is a proper thing to do. It's it definitely is brought down, even though the Gemara seems to conclude that it's not necessary. This is an area that people seem to that there definitely are later books. It's sort of like the Gemara ends the letter of the law, and then all the later poskim seem to, even in the Mishnah Berurah and other Sfarim, they talk about going to mikvah or Tisha Kabin and so on. Okay, well, I guess my time is up.
Shabbos, Rebbe.
Have a wonderful Shabbos. Thank you. Yes.
Rabbi, one last
Yes.
question. The heavy rain that occurred overnight, you said that rain is not allowed. I mean, standing out there in your birthday suit and having the rain come down on you. But with a heavy rain of the type that occurred last night, where basically it appears as if the water were completely, were like a shower, that would
But it
not be
still
allowed.
drops.
Yeah, I first of all, I don't think that would be. I believe that they're not touching each other. The rainwater is not touching each other while it's pouring. Now, but additionally, I believe it has to be koyach adam from the. In other words, when you turn on the shower, you are causing the water to flow. You are pouring it on you when you take a bucket. It's done from a human. I don't believe that if it's pouring down, that would be considered kosher. I'm not 100% sure. I'll have to try to look that up as well. But
How many
as far as I
people would
know,
want to stand naked in the street? I don't know.
We're not
Well, you
talking-
might do it in your
you can stand
backyard.
in your You can stand in your backyard and have the rain do its job. At 4 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the morning, nobody sees you except God. of
Without
course.
a pail so you can dip.
anyway,
All right. Have a nice.
have a wonderful
Shabbat
Shabbos,
shalom,
everyone.
Rabbi.
Sei gesund.
You too.
Sei
Bye-bye.
gesund to everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, Rabbi.